Well, we're talking about Easter 1978, and the craft teacher had been to see Jesus Christ Superstar in London, came back to North Walsham School where I was teaching, and said, this is a great production. I'm going to give you some stage dimensions. Let's think about putting the show on. So we pulled the students together. We had Mary and Jesus and Judas and, you know, the main people from the Bible story. Plus I was working with a guitarist called Alan Gray. And we pulled Alan in one day and we said, Alan, we want to do Jesus Christ Superstar. Oh, that's great, fantastic, let's go and see the show. And I think we did go down and see the show. We came back. But then one day we got a telephone call to say we couldn't do the show because it was running in London and they wouldn't license it any other school to do it. So we had the cast ready. Alan said to me, well, let's write our own show. I thought, what? We got to do the crucifixion story and oh, goodness me. But anyway, he came out to school. He wrote the first song, the Judas song. We got permission to do Try Not to Get Worried from the original musical.
Try not to get worried, try not to turn on.
And the student said, well, Mr. Snell, are you going to start writing the rest of the show? And I started. I remember doing it, a lot of it during school time, putting the first drafts together of the disciples heading for Jerusalem, and then the Palm Sunday scene, and then the priest plot, and the various stages came together. And we're talking now about June, July 78. In August, Alan and I got together with some guys in our front room in Norwich, and he played me a song called Love Me Tomorrow, which he'd written looking at a different perspective. He'd written a lot of love songs, but he wanted to write a song about Jesus hanging on the cross and what his feelings were as he entered into crucifixion and then henceforth into the resurrection. And when I heard this song, I thought, that's going to have to be the last song of the show. Well, about months went on, and about January 1979 to February 1979, the show was finished. And we had the whole story ready, 22 songs. And our performance was April 3rd, 4th and 5th. Prior to that, I had tonsillitis. I got a phone call saying that the deputy headmaster was very, very unhappy about the show going ahead because he'd seen a run-through on the Sunday. And Russell Hammond, who was directing, said to me, Martyn, I don't think we can do it. And I said, well, let's just see what the children can do with a walkthrough. Let's walk through the show. So he said, okay, so we'll do that. And so we cancelled lessons in most of the school for the day and got the students walking through the project on the stage. And the headmaster, or deputy headmaster, Keith Povert, came in and said, well, yeah, it looks in better shape. I mean, at one point, Jesus was chewing gum on the cross and not looking very spiritual at all. Anyway, the show went ahead. We started on April 3rd. By 6 o'clock, the staff park was absolutely full. The car park was full, and we could see it was going to be a success. And by the end of the third night, the third run, there were so many people in the hall, we had to get people sitting under the grand piano to actually get in. So it was an absolutely fantastic success, and I will never, ever forget the first night. Halfway through, we had a tent behind the school that we had to actually do all the changing in and rehearsals in. And the students came up to me and they hugged me and they said, oh, Mr. Snell, this is actually fantastic. And we knew it was going to be a tremendous success. And many years later, students still look back on that first performance in 1979. I think aside from any spiritual message that the show gave, it transformed the life of music in North Walsham School, because the students just saw you differently, you know, as a composer, but also they saw people that you brought into the school. I mean, Alan not only wrote the songs, helped to write the songs for the musical, he also played Pilate, which is an absolutely incredible situation. He played for his own song in the first half of the show. In the second half of the show, he played Pilate. And then he comes off stage, and then he grabs the guitar and he plays the guitar and sings the last song as Jesus hanging on the cross. So it was an absolutely memorable moment. But as I said, it did transform my life. And musicals, unlike movies, they have a life that lives on and on and on in people's minds. And as I say, 30 plus years later, students still remember those days, and they're even contacting me now saying, oh, we must have a sort of reunion, even in the UK. Well, that's how powerful the message is. It stands on its own, you know. 7 days will live on forever. The 79 was the first one. In 1981, we were asked to put the show on in a church. And we had to build a stage so high so we could see, because the pews were so high in the church, because it was a very old church. We had to build a stage very high. Again, it was a tremendous success. It ran for 3 nights. By this time, Try Not to Get Worried had been changed into Come Jesus, and various changes took place. The final song, one of the final songs, My God, was written. I actually wrote that standing behind the piano in one classroom. Chris Turner said to me, Martyn, you need to write a song about the crucifixion, the lady standing at the cross, that Mary and Martha, or ladies standing at the foot of the cross. And so that's how My God came to be written. Plus he wanted a title opening song, so 7 days. The actual song 7 days was written during that time. So that's end of Britain, and we're back into Canada, and then 1996, April, 3 performances. The car park was again full by, what, 6:30? It was quite, we knew again it was going to be a tremendous success. Obviously much more, we had the church taking part, not so many students, but we had adults in the community. And it was so successful that we actually had to pull the wall back in the church and run so we could actually get enough people in. By the last performance in April, we realized that we'd probably have to do it again, and we had to go ahead to do it again in June. We had a slightly different cast, but again, I think by the 3rd night, we'd virtually exhausted everybody to come and see the show. And then the next performance was where I re-scripted the music, not just for a basic choir, but for a SATB choir. And I was working with a choir in the park called Aurora, and we ran for 1 night. And we had some problems about staging, but we got them all sorted out. And then last year, Jackie, I think, certainly had the inspiration to think, well, we need to do this show again. And so that's what we're working at the moment. And we haven't changed too much of the music. Instead of making Judas a central character as well as Jesus Christ, we've tended to move away from the Jesus Christ superstar model and take Judas's main song out. So he's still an important part. But our focus actually at the start of the show is the introductory song, plus we then move straight into Palm Sunday, and then the story carries on from there. The musical inspiration really to me it's timeless, because there's ballads, there's rock, and you've got a little bit of funk with songs like Holy Lord, and you've got a lot of classical styles with Gethsemane. I mean, Gethsemane took it's a 7-minute song. It took something like 2 or 3 days to write. The Trial took 5 days to write. I remember that, spending time on that. Some songs come, you never know. I was washing up, and the melody for The Last Supper came, which is ideal because you're washing up. And Gethsemane started with, I was covering a 5th-year class, and the idea came farther, I'm afraid. As well as just reading the Bible, I used a research book called The Life and Words of Christ by Cunningham Geiger, and that gave me the story. And different to Superstar, the 7 Days story is told, I think, more chronologically, and with a different focus to what Andrew Lloyd Webber had in mind. I mean, in that respect, it's telling a different story. Jesus Christ is the central character, but not so much the superstar. He just lives in our hearts. So that's where we're at the moment. We're working on another, I think, 3-night production on the 6th, 7th and 8th of April, and we're in 2017, and that's where we're at. And I should just mention that I did phone yesterday Alan Gray, who wrote Love Me Tomorrow. I said, Alan, are we still go ahead to use this song? He said, use it as many times as you like, and he told me about the background of the song, as I indicated in this broadcast, and I just feel it's going to be a real powerful message again of Easter.